Welcome to Eternal Mooncast, the podcast and now Twitch show that examines wonderful Sailor Moon theories. I'm your host, Michi, a 90s baby and Sailor Moon fan. Sailor Neptune is my main, and I always love to represent her in the Outer Scouts. And today I have the wonderful Shiva Larson with me as my guest.
Hi. Very excited to be here.
We're examining part 2 because the prequel podcast examined whether Seiya would be a better partner for Usagi. But in the flip of that, I also wanted to ask, would Sailor Pluto actually make a better partner for King Endymion? Because there's actually a lot of people who bring up this theory quite often at conventions. I feel like it's the hardcore Sailor Moon fans that are, like, the big shippers especially, who start that theory. Like, I know I've seen there's, like, a Reddit thread, I've seen a couple Tumblr blogs talking about it. When did you hear the theory?
I think I found it when, if we look at all the other Sailor Scouts, they have a significant other. There's a potential partner, and then Sailor Pluto didn't really have that. So when I was growing up and looking for it, the only person who would come up was either King Endymion, which I get. That's based off a small section that happens in Act 20 in the manga. And then it's supported by the musicals. And then Taiki would also pop up, but that was never something I could vibe with.
Yeah, I've seen Taiki. I've seen that one a few times, but I really don't feel like at least remember okay, I do fully admit I remember the 90s anime more than I remember my manga. I would have to reference the manga, which but they don't have a ton of interaction.
No, really, it's none. And I believe it stemmed from both of them.
Being the tallest.
It was going to go for a more of a lack of romanticism and maybe finding that common ground together. But I always preferred Taiki with Amy, if it
Mm.
went that way. And I'm never going to get off of that. That's one of my ships.
Oh, I know. The Starlights and the Inners and Moon Moon, I'm a big fan of those ships.
It's hard.
It's hard because I also am a big fan of Burning Love, but I also love the idea of Yaten and Minako as a couple.
Well, absolutely. They're another one that I care about.
Either way, Mina seems to always like the long hair on her
The
partners.
white hairs up. All of them.
And then Chibiusa takes right after her.
Yes. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so basically so we've heard this theory around the Sailor Moon community. What's funny is I haven't heard a lot of hate on the theory, which I do admit Sailor Moon is a very open, I feel like, community. I think it's one of the very few that I've heard Naoko actually, like, is a big fan of fan art and seeing her creation in different forms. Like, I've read way too much on Tumblr, especially about Sailor Moon, which I'm excited about the Tumblr comeback. It's like me and 4 kids who are still on it, who are like, "Welcome back."
And I still use Tumblr. It saves me every day. Um, some people can go into really deep dives of things that I never would have thought about.
I feel like that's how we ended up here. Because okay, so I understand the theory, but I'm gonna take the position that I do. Here's the thing, it's the show Sailor Moon. She's the main character, and Mamo's been the love interest since day 1, and it's how he gets yeeted basically out of season 5. Because the poor guy is already, like, a damsel in distress, princess peaching seasons 1 through 4.
He is actually the most kidnapped male character so far in anime history. That I saw that on a chart of who is the most kidnapped male, and it is just Mamoru. And I'm like, you're right. He's a damsel in distress, and it is the funniest thing.
You say that, and I 100% believe it.
But it was like on one of the Japanese magazine charts that go around every once in a while.
Oh my gosh. I at one time, whenever I do my next watch through, I'm gonna have to count how many times he gets kidnapped or brainwashed. Because I feel like it's at least double digits.
Oh, yeah, no, it definitely is. Please. It's even in like the movies, always he's gone.
I know, but you know what? I'll say this, he is pretty good in the second movie. He's There for moral support.
Which one's the second movie?
Hearts
That's
and
the third.
Ice.
Oh,
Ice Queen?
that one. Yes, okay. Ice cream. He is still there. First.
Okay. But let's talk about would Pluto, who what we know about Pluto, and here's the thing, Pluto in every iteration is a little different. You would agree?
I agree.
Okay, because all right, let's start with the basics. Let's start with the one that everybody is the most familiar with, which is 90s anime and or Crystal, which they do get handled a little differently, but I think that's a good way to see it in a different light.
So Pluto as a character was left at the time gate by herself after the Silver Millennium fell. She's been by herself for eons. She's guarding the sacred timeline. She is ensuring nothing gets distorted. And the time we see her is when Chibi decides it's a good idea to time travel, though I have a different theory on that. But Chibi time travels, starts ruining the timeline. The Sailor Scouts from the past come to the future to help what's going on with the Black Moon Clan.
Mhm.
And she is actually regarded by Endymion of being one of the best Sailor Scouts. He does nothing but compliment her and her infinite wisdom. Simply because she is old. In this, you have to remember she's been alone that
Mhm.
entire time. The only people who are able to communicate with her are people of the Moon Kingdom, the royal family. So it's literally just Serenity, Endymion, and Rini. In
Yeah.
we have no real idea if that includes the Sailor Scouts or not, but we can assume based on previous things where she said she just wanted to be a part of the group,
Yeah.
which is heartbreaking. That is so
Which
sad for her.
well, yeah, and her dad, it is stated in I believe every form that her dad is Kronos, right? The
Yes.
god of time. And it's like, how in the world did Queen Serenity somehow end up as the guardian of the god of time's daughter?
So my personal belief, which can easily go into some crazy fan theory, but Kronos is a god who, in his insanity, ate other gods. He
Really?
he's in Greek mythology, he swallowed Poseidon and Hades and other
Oh, that's
gods.
right. It's been a long time since my middle school mythology.
But skipping there is some altercation that occurs. I think the servitude of Pluto is a form of either reconciliation or punishment for the crimes that her father committed against the other gods. And that is how she is to repent for the sins of her father.
Yeah. Which, honestly, that would make sense because the gods do tend to be vengeful.
Exactly. And it would also mean that someone who is as powerful as Kronos is under constant watch as well. Yes, she has a very important job, probably a job no one else wants to do, but she's also nearby where if she does go to do anything, they'll probably know about it.
Yeah. Like, genuinely, they'll probably know. And that's the thing is that Queen Serenity definitely seems to have control over Pluto when she's younger.
Oh,
And
she's a child. She looks like she's 5.
she looks like she like and she has the big staff. That's the weirdest part to me is she has like the full grown staff. Like they literally just took her and just sent her to work.
Basically, it's horrible. Sailor Pluto's upbringing is horrible and tragic. And so I think what ends up happening, because it's literally only the royal moon family who can visit her, she doesn't see anybody until Neo Queen Serenity takes the throne, retakes Crystal Tokyo whenever that event happens where she ascends.
Yeah.
I don't even think they planned it, but forgetting the time skip and knowing Pluto, like that never happens. We're just assuming Serenity, now queen, opens the
Yeah.
capital. Pluto's just there.
Yeah, she's just standing there.
She's just working, and it's probably like an "oh, you're back" situation. She just goes about watching the door, and the only people to visit her would be essentially Serenity and Endymion. that we know
Yes.
about. And if that's the case, Endymion is the only male she has ever been in contact with.
You know, yeah, because we
Literally,
have no idea who Usagi's dad is.
no, we absolutely don't. We also, in terms of the moon family, it could also be that maybe Artemis would have access to Pluto because of Luna, but we don't know where that goes. We know they have a daughter, but I don't know. Does Artemis stay with Venus? Who knows?
Yeah, there's a lot that here's the thing, I would love a prequel because there are so many questions that we all have about how, things used to be back then.
Yeah, we know absolutely nothing. We can literally only stab into the dark.
But now that we've explored Pluto a bit, now let's explore Endymion as a character because we've gone over Pluto, what her strengths, her weaknesses, what her like real driving motivation, which I wanted to examine both characters before we examine their relationship.
Okay.
So this poor boy is in therapy, I think, since the day we meet him.
Oh my God. He starts off life being found after a car crash that kills both of his parents. He is now an orphan. In one of the movies, there's a strange thing that a baby Serena finds him immediately after this happens.
It's the first movie.
Yeah, we're ignoring it. He's literally by himself, raises himself. He does fairly well. He literally goes to college to be a doctor. So by himself, he functions as a wonderful human being. I think he's incredibly smart. I think he's very driven and focused. I don't think he has a real job. I'm pretty sure it's just part-time at the arcade.
Does
I
he at all? I don't think he even works at the does he work at the arcade? I thought Andy worked at the arcade.
he does in one
It's
of
a
he helped out. I just want more explanation.
And here's the thing, something I was reading and researching for this episode, and something someone said stuck with me, and it was an article about what Usagi and Mamo's relationship had taught them. And what it was interesting is it and I did think it pointed out because it's very similar to how another favorite anime of mine talked about it was Assassination Classroom with Kurosama, which is they are very it's a cultural difference, I think, a little bit for us 'cause they're very culturally Japanese men from what I understand, which is, like, more reserved with emotion. Because Usagi is bright and colorful and out there, and, you know exactly what emotion Usagi is about to feel, let alone actually feels. Whereas I feel like Mamo, for the most part, doesn't ever really express much other than belief and, like, confidence in Usagi, but that's the feeling I get the most from him.
So, based off the manga and the current crystal, I agree with that because if we look at the 90s anime, Mamo was a big. I'm
Mama was
sorry,
reading a book most of the
man.
time.
I've ever seen. He would fight with Usagi, he would call her names, especially the episodes when Rainy was around. I think it was Sailor Moon R. He was incredibly expressive. However, I only watched the English version of that. I don't know how he is in the original Japanese version, but incredibly expressive. I can see your point in terms of the manga in Crystal. He's a lot more quiet. Yes, he would tease Usagi, but it was at a downplayed level compared to what we received in the 90s.
Yeah, and by no means am I an expert. It was just something interesting I thought that maybe we hadn't thought of as an American viewer watching the show, of what we have as expectations for how someone shows their love. And like Usagi, like one episode I always think of that kind of defines their relationship for me is the birthday episode where Usagi wants the glass slippers.
I'm sorry, which episode?
Season 3, about halfway through, she doesn't know that Haruka and Michiru are Sailor Neptune and Uranus, but they know each other and they're friendly. And Usagi had never told, apparently, up until this point, to Darien or Mamo. Sorry, guys, we go back and forth between 90s and we go back and forth between 90s names and other names. So here's the thing. The Usagi keeps, like, trying to drop hints that she wants these glass slippers, and then Mamo doesn't get her these slippers, and she loses her mind and actually slaps him.
Eh?
Yeah, and she gets really upset and she's all, "It's my birthday. How could you not actually do this so that I would be able to have the glass slippers? You're supposed to be my prince. We're supposed to be this destined couple." Like laying it on super thick about her birthday. And then he says, "You never told me what day is your birthday." Which though that brings up the question, does that mean that all the events in season 1, season 2, and half of season 3 happened in 1 year?
Their school changes. They
No,
are
it doesn't.
monsters.
No, they're still in middle school.
Stop Israel. The only school change when they go to high school.
Yes.
I quit. No way.
No,
No.
if you think about it, if you actually think about it and look at it, it is literally that Amo, like, that's the thing, we don't even see Mamo change schools, ever.
No, he does this thing where in season 1, he's in high school. We know that. And
Okay.
then when he's studying to get the entrance exams because he wants to be a doctor, Amy comments on it because she wants to follow him in pursuing being a doctor. I can't remember what season that is. It's the one before Stars.
Super S.
And then you're right. Yes, thank you. And then in Stars, he very clearly gets on the plane to go to school and then is obliterated by Galaxy.
Oh, was he a freshman then or a sophomore in college, or
Unclear. Don't know. We
we're
have
just
no
gonna
idea.
keep that in the Sailor Moon question universe?
I'm hoping that they'll explain that when Stars comes around because they don't really give him a timeline.
Here's the thing, in Supers in the '90s, they got rid of the Golden Crystal storyline
They did.
completely. They
They did.
just Yeah, they took that and they literally just yeeted it out of the script.
I don't. I have no idea what they're going to do with Stars.
Okay, so Mamo, it's a very much a destined love with Usagi. It is very much, there's almost 3 sets of people in with Mamo's character. There's the Prince and Endymion who died, the Mamo of the current, then this weird, like, Tuxedo Mask King Endymion character,
Yes.
or and Moonlight Knight, depending on your version.
Yep.
Can't forget Moonlight Knight. I think it's really interesting, and here's the thing, is I get the big argument I always hear against Usagi and Mamo is dust and love, that's all they have is destiny. There's nothing like no chemistry or anything really between them. But I almost think that's talking almost just about the prince and the princess from the past. And I feel like that's not giving enough validation to the characters of Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask as characters and how they grow, and how Usagi and Mamo just happen to meet on the street, and Usagi just happens to have horrible grades that Mamo decides to, for no reason, roast this small child. So
I think that Sailor Moon Crystal definitely does a lot better in giving romance to Asagi and Mamoru. I
yeah,
feel like it has definitely upped its game. There's definitely romantic moments. I definitely was a lot more invested than if I rewatched the 90s anime today. They blew it out of the water in terms of that. Because if Crystal didn't exist, I would 100% agree. There's other things we also have to look at than just their teenage years because we're looking at Pluto wouldn't have met the young Tuxedo Mask, the high school Mamoru, Darien, whatever we want to call him. He would have met an adult King Endymion,
ooh.
who we don't even know if this man ever graduates. We don't know if he has a medical career. We only know he is an adult with Serenity, who may or may not be pregnant at this time.
What age
And
does Serenity take the throne?
I feel like it was 21. What education do you have to rule a country all of a sudden? Like it's just being thrust upon her. And unless her memory is magically unlocked and she had some amazing education as the former princess, what are you doing? So I could see in this transition period of their lives, men possibly getting pretty damn frustrated.
Yeah.
I bet.
And it turns out she was 22.
Okay, 22. Maybe not more serious in high school. We don't know. We see her literally at the end of freshman year, and that's the end of it. We don't know
Oh,
the
his
event. cause her to ascend to the throne. We know nothing, which
No, we
is,
just know it was an ice age somehow,
yeah, something happens that she has to take. I don't know.
which it
So
just
yeah,
sounds like one of Jedi's plans went really wrong. And, like, he accidentally and, like, instead of freezing the city, accidentally, like, froze the entire planet and was almost gonna kill everybody.
and they're stuck that way for a few thousand years because Rini's only 900. I can't get into that.
Alright, you know what? We're gonna focus, we're focusing. We're only on the theory about Mama Tsuna.
So at that point, oh my god, what is the age difference?
He's 16 in the manga.
Okay, that is more useful. She's definitely 14. Okay, so there's a two. Let's go with the 2-year age difference.
According to Sailor Moon fandoms on Wikipedia, he is 16 years old high school student at the start of the manga, but in the 90s anime, he is a 17-year-old first-year university student.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
But if
It
he
is.
also probably skipped grades.
He might have. He's incredibly bright. I don't know if the like the universities in Japan allow you to just go on a medical track. And you can just do that. Here in the US, you have to get your bachelor's and then do medicine.
True.
So I don't know how it functions. In theory, I want to say no because then even if you graduate, you have to go into an internship, you have to go into residency. That's a few years. Like he couldn't have gone very far into the medical field.
Yeah.
Could have
And
completed everything we needed to.
he would at least have something, and we don't know how much he has to do because there was an interesting tidbit I read where some people think the reason that he's more likable in Crystal is he's more of an equal to Usagi and that he has the golden crystal. He actually does something in the fights.
Does they Yes, they definitely utilize him. They definitely gave more umph to his character in this, which I appreciate. Because you could somewhat see it in the manga, but it's just literal words and pictures. You couldn't get the full effect of it where the animation brings it out a lot better.
Yeah, and I almost feel like somehow in the 90s they lost or got the wrong notes on him or decided just a completely opposite direction for what Nako ultimately had planned.
I uh, Mamoru was done dirty in the 90s.
Yeah, him and Venus. Venus is my other one that I'm mad at.
You know what? You're right. And I gave her Mamoru was still done worse. Venus had a leg to stand on. She was going places at least.
Yeah, she was at least happier.
She was happier. I feel like the manga's made everyone a little bit more miserable, but the other thing we have to look at in terms of the Mamoru Setsuna relationship is we don't know how well their Mamoru and Usagi's union is going because now after season 5, we have the wrench of that is Seiya. Have no idea if Usagi keeps contact. We do not know how true she stays. We don't know if Seiya just often disappears or if he is a possible or she is a possible problem. We literally don't know. We know Rini exists, but if we look at couples in the real world, sure, you can go ahead, get married, have a kid, and then have a miserable marriage. We know nothing.
You're
We
not
don't know.
wrong, you're not wrong.
Oh my God. What is it? Crystal Tokyo functions. We don't know what their life is like, what pressures they're under. I'm sure it's immense. I'm sure there would be strain on the marriage if they're not completely unified, especially if Seiya is around.
Seiya, I feel like could be that person that, like, hops over to the galaxy every once in a while to say hi.
But under what circumstances? Is it to say hi because of diplomatic reasons between Earth and Kinmoku? Or is it because we just want to see Serenity and get whatever it is off our
What was
chest? I don't know.
what was Serenity's point of going down to see Mamo on Earth back in the before times?
That is it that?
I'm like, "We've seen this story before, so she went after him hard enough."
We have. And you know what's really funny is the creator of Sailor Moon in the manga, she would put in these little side notes to
Mhm.
things at the end of the story. And when Pluto character comes in, she gives something she hoped for the character. And in this side panel, I wanted to give Pluto a dark personality, which is why her hair is dark and her skin is
Oh,
dark.
yeah.
She also said, I wanted to write an unrequited love for Pluto so bad. And in this arc two of season two, she purposely wanted to make Pluto a bit of an adulteress,
Ooh.
which it, she wrote it. In the image, there is a chibi figure of Pluto holding her staff and blushing, and right next to it is a rabbit holding the moon staff, giving just that side eye.
Oh,
Which,
really?
yes, and it just gives way that maybe, very well, maybe Endymion and her could have been a side thing. I'm gonna run away and check on Pluto, and then they have this strange romantic twist. I don't know. I'm here for it. I feel like it's incredibly unfair that she is the only person who doesn't have a potential love interest that has any foundation or merit. And
Because, like, at least Uranus and Neptune went out on 2 space rocks, had each other.
e- exactly, she had no proximity to anybody until she is reincarnated after she dies trying to save Chibi. So maybe then we can have experiences, but the manga and so far Crystal has provided us with nothing. And I get where she is. Asexuals in the LGBT
Mhm.
community have used her as a rock as that she doesn't have anyone. She's possibly asexual. And I'm like, I don't want to take that away from anybody. But I could see that being a point twist as well, though we do have this Endymion factor.
Yeah, and it's funny, Fox, one of my friends, Sailor Peter Fox, actually brought up that she believes that Pluto is ace, and therefore it's just a lot of admiration for Endymion instead of the blushing is more like when someone who is
It's the
superior
kind
to
of
you.
thing.
Yeah, they're like, "Ooh, well." The
Yes, that. Only reason I don't agree with that, because when she is dying, she's fading away because she broke one of the 3 taboos of
yes.
time. There is whole dedicated panel of just Endymion in her eyes, where she is just, "Oh my god, it's the king. He's here. His cloak is just like that of Twilight."
Oh, I think I actually know exactly which panel you're talking about, yeah.
It's huge. She just says, "I carried out my duties with honor, my king. Your face is so close. Don't look so sad. The lavender cloak, the color of twilight, and of the beautiful dawn." And it has nothing to do with this moment. It is just in immense. Like you can tell there's a shift in color where the sun is beaming down on his beautiful face. And this is her last moment. It's the second to last sentence she says. The other thing she says is, "I'm sorry to Rini," as she fades away into whatever.
Yeah.
We did not need that if it was a senpai moment.
That and here's my devil's advocate argument. It all comes back to her childhood, which is why I wanted to explore her as a child. She sees Queen Serenity, in my opinion, almost like her father, almost godlike.
Mhm.
And for as far as we know, Queen Serenity was up there in that powerhouse of godlike power. She then, in theory, should see both King Endymion and Neo Queen Serenity when they come out after whatever and finally greet her as godlike creatures instead of people, shouldn't she?
I agree. And I think because she stood by herself for so long at the time gate, that she never lost her childlike mentality of when she was kept there. Because
Mm,
she wouldn't have the means to grow emotionally mature at all when she doesn't know any better. She has nothing to compare it to. So if you look at that arc, her words, the way she speaks seems less mature. It changes when she's reincarnated. And in theory, when she was reincarnated, she would have had some type of parent. She would have had access to an education. And until she reawoke, as Sailor Pluto, which
Yeah.
doesn't happen until she's in high school with Haruka and Michiru, and then the three of them do their thing. But I don't think she had in any capacity. She's at a completely different level later in the season.
Yeah, I feel like living with Haruka and Michiru really helped ground her.
I agree.
And it's funny, I read a few fanfics where it's, like, that moment after the Marine Cathedral, because the Marine Cathedral in the '90s is just I wanna know who pitched that idea, because that was not in the manga even slightly. Not complaining, I prefer that by far, to see, like, the dramatic deaths and how they would die for each other, and that's how the talismans appear 'cause the talismans are just there when we, see them in Crystal. They're just already there right off the bat. So I get where you're going. It's interesting. It's very much because we don't know if she has any books. We don't even know if she has a chair.
Yeah, I don't think she has a chair. I literally think she stands there the entire time.
She must have great legs, but sorry, my bad jokes. The only thing I'll say though, we were talking about fighting for your love. Would Usagi ever let Mamo go to Pluto?
I think, like, again, it's gonna be what their marriage looks like. We don't even get to see them married. We get to see them engaged and happily in love. But it all depends. Are they miserable? Are they stepping out on each other? Is say a factor? Is Haruka a factor? Like,
Haruka better not, otherwise there's gonna be more trouble in another household.
but again, I think if it was to happen at all, and they ascend to their castle and they're like, oh, there is this other person here. You mean she's been sitting here for errors? She's never seen anybody? Because that door cannot open unless there's a moon royal there, and they've all been
Yeah.
dead centuries. No one has been there.
Ooh, actually, controversial question, which I've never seen explored. Could Queen Nehelenia open the door?
I don't think she knows about the door.
I feel like
I
she would've stole the door if they told.
Yeah, I think if she knew about it, she would have done something with it. I feel she could have had access to it, but I think it was a well-guarded secret.
Yeah, because she's technically moon royalty by
Yes.
technicality.
She not wanted moon royalty, but and
Yeah.
we how, if at all, they're related, but, um, I think she could have done something. Back to what I was saying before, I think when they realized that there was this person there who has been by herself, I think there would have been some form of mortification from Endymion, who would have been like, "Oh my god, we should visit her." And
Yeah.
if in law, it could only be the royals who could do so. If none of the other Sailor Scouts did this, I truly do believe Endymion would have been the one to make the time to go sit and have tea with her for maybe 30 minutes, check up on her, something. Like, does this girl even sleep? I don't know. But I feel like out of everyone, Serenity would have been too busy running the kingdom. And if there was anyone to have time to step away for 5 minutes to check up on someone, it would have been him.
It's it's a very interesting thing because for me, here's the thing, Usagi, every single time that we see her in battle, her last person that always gives her, like, the biggest boost of power is Mamo, but I almost think the fandom's theory doesn't really take place during when we're seeing. I really
Um,
feel like the fandom's theory is about the next chapter that we never got, the Crystal Tokyo era. Because while I think that their love story, like, if something's always trying to break you apart, it's more of not so much that they're always breaking apart, it's more like the world is always trying to tear them apart consistently, and it's
Mhm.
always their love story that is what is pushing it through.
I
I know it's an interesting contradiction in a way, like, because Sailor Moon, we always hear it, Sailor Moon's more powerful than Goku, Sailor Moon's more powerful than blah, blah, blah.
think what
But
she is.
which she is, yes, we always agree, but it becomes of a question of the source of her power seems to be other people, especially. the beliefs of others, almost like Little Witch Academia style belief.
We look at the very beginning, it was law that the earth and the moon could not mix. The love between Endymion and Serenity was forbidden, right? So they were never supposed to exist. And
Yes.
I feel there was something to that law that cosmically we don't know about. So I could very well see that with all of these villains coming out and in the Stars manga arc, Serenity or Sailor Moon comes and decides that the silver crystal is what is calling all of these people to
Mhm.
Earth to destroy it.
Yes,
Um, and
which
I
I've heard.
think in that, and to be fair, I think the golden crystal, not knowing where it stands at the moment, I think that is what would tap into the silver crystal's power to tamper it, which
Mhm.
would give that break and the peace and tranquility that apparently happens during the Crystal Tokyo time. Because until the Black Moon clan pops around, they have thousands of years of peace. That's what they say. And I think when those two crystals merge, or at least in close proximity, that they cancel each other out power wise. And that would be Sailor Moon and Endymion.
Yeah, because it was funny actually. Sailor Peter Fox also mentioned something about how Sailor Moon and King Endymion are kind of mirrors of each other
Mhm.
in that the go King Endymion is the golden crystal. He is literally the sun. He is the brightness in the universe. He is the bright light in Usagi's world,
Mhm.
whereas the moon is the light in the darkness. So they're both forms of light, so they are more complementary, whereas then that brings me back to what you mentioned earlier. What does Setsuna's name literally translates into?
Oh man, I sent you this, so why don't I
You sent
remember?
me this, like, we've talked this over before, and it's basically, like, how I feel like Pluto 'cause everything that we talked about, it's there's not really a lot of light in her life, it seems like the only light is what is it was the line that Uranus and Neptune said with Pluto, where it's, like, the smiles of the queen and the princess, or what I guess they imagined them look was the light in their life. It's an interesting contradiction of could two people from such different universes match, whereas it makes more sense Usagi and Mamo because they are so complementary and so each other.
No, I could definitely see that. I'm just looking for that name thing. My stance is going to be because I do love Sailor Moon and Endymion. They're a power couple in my brain. But if we throw a wrench at them and Usagi is feeling Seiya and that marriage is gonna break, then I could 100% see Endymion going with Pluto. I don't know
Yes.
what that means for the kingdom, because in theory, Crystal Tokyo is on Earth. Is Sailor Moon going back to the moon? I don't know how that divorce is gonna go.
Can they rule from one planet? Because that's something else with Uranus and Neptune always in fan fiction especially is can they rule 2 planets at once from one
They
planet?
switch. Go back and forth every season. I don't know.
But really, I think we have 2 very interesting perspectives. If I had to agree with your theory, how I could see it would be they were definitely in love is when they were younger through the time we saw them. It would be more of we would need to know what happens in Crystal Tokyo, how we get there to even really be able to make any evidence. Like, we do have a ton of evidence that there is definitely either a crush or Naoko had a plan that she wanted to go with that maybe the writers or the editors or the series producers cut.
To put in the manga, Sailor Pluto is an adulteress. That is a strong word to choose. I only noticed flipping through my books today or looking for things to talk about. And it's like, damn, she just wants to throw her under the bus and give her this really deep story that I feel we didn't get. Like, we
I
don't.
know.
She's the least explored Sailor Scout, and I need more info.
It's an interesting catch-22 because originally we weren't even supposed to get 5 seasons. We were only supposed to get 1. They were all Spoiler alert, they were all supposed to die at the end of season 1. That's why the Doom and Gloom girls were not, like, taking them out like normal villains. The Doom and Gloom girls were taking them out. Like, they were not supposed to make it. So, it's an interesting thing that then suddenly Sailor Moon R comes out, and then by Stars, Naoko Takeuchi was done. But then we're still getting new content now with Eternal movie.
So I haven't seen her do much. She had plenty of time to think. Maybe
You know.
just more us. I mean, we have gotten so much more. In season 1 of Crystal, we got a backstory for the Centennial. And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yes, give me that with all the Sailor Scouts and how they were a thing back in the Silver Millennium, please. Thank you." We got more of Helios, and we got more of the Earth Kingdom and the princess arc, which was insane. We got them as children in the Silver Millennium. We're getting a lot of Silver Millennium content.
I
Which
almost wonder, are there books coming out that we don't know about?
they're really slow in giving us stuff.
I'm
Well,
excited for Stars, though, because Stars is the wild card of all 5 seasons.
oh, it's absolutely the wild card. Like, whatever they're going to give us is going to be better than the anime we received, and it's going to be way better than manga because the manga was clearly rushed.
Yes.
Do we have a date?
We do not. It is just called Sailor Moon Cosmos. Oh, summer. This summer.
Oh, it's the summer? Great. That the Sailor Wars needs to know
Yeah, the
about.
Sailor Wars. We get very little information about the Sailor Wars.
We literally have 3 sentences. I need more.
Ah, I know, but we're almost at the end of the episode. So, wrapping up, it's an interesting case where I feel like I can see where the theory comes from because of who the 2 characters are as backstory and the information we get in the time period we get. And especially in the musicals, it's very obvious when Sailor Pluto gets a solo song about loving Endymion.
Oh, I thought it was a duet with Beryl.
No,
But yeah,
or
has
was it a duet with Beryl?
yeah, she has a song. I can't pronounce the title, but in the musical, it's just about unrequited love, which is why Beryl's also in it. I don't think she has mate,
Oh,
but yes, she has this whole dedicated time frame to how much she wants to be with Endymion, which
that would make sense with Beryl to duet that because Beryl also wants to be with
yes,
Endymion. It's an
into that.
interesting theory. I hope everybody has enjoyed our 2 different perspectives and how we tackled the theory. This has been Eternal Mooncast. I am U21 Cosplay. You can find me on any of our social media links if you would like to plug yourself, Shiva.
I'm Shiva_Larson on Instagram. You can just follow me there. That's all I've got.
But follow for good Sailor Pluto and Endymion content.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, this has been Eternal Mooncast. I will be back. I am the host for all the episodes. I'm Michi. This is Shiva. Thank you for joining us at Eternal Mooncast, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for
Bye.
having
Hey guys, it's Michi. Consider this the kinda Sailor Moon says of the segment. I just wanted to let you guys know that I appreciate everybody who listened all the way through to the end or even listened to a little part of it. I'm coming back after now becoming the host, but also the show creator and showrunner. Because of that, we've had to take a break because I had to learn the skills to properly do this podcast. And now that I feel that I am ready, we are releasing the episodes again. In case you are wondering, the show runs on Twitch and it is recorded on Saturday nights, 7 to 10 Eastern Time. And if you are ever interested, find us on Twitch at Eternal Mooncast. You can also keep up with whenever the show is going on, if anything has to be pushed, if anything might be different about the schedule or what the topic of the night is. Please check out our Instagram and TikTok where I try to keep you guys as updated as I can. Specifically, Instagram is the best for the schedule. But I am sorry for the long break. I hope you are excited that Eternal Mooncast is back, and I can't wait to show you guys all the wonderful theories that we're diving into. Thank you. Bye bye.